Okay, first prize, everybody. What is the drink of the day? Mm. So if you can guess that drink, it has to be the proper brand and the proper flavor for you to win the fake prize. So any guesses, just throw them in those comments. Of course, if you haven't told your friends yet to subscribe, let them know, share that you're watching. Appreciate everybody watching. I'm Chef JJ. Welcome to Family Meal Cook Time. So an opportunity for us to throw together some family-style meals, different styles, give you an opportunity to learn some kind of different ways that we utilize the same ingredients to get the most out of it, and then share some different recipes. So really we're going to talk about some refried beans, and we're going to talk about some salsas, and then some ancillary recipes after that. Of course, if you love what I'm telling you, or maybe you learn a little something new, or have anything of value, these live series are for tips to support the team. So anything and everything helps, so we appreciate it. The Venmo account will be in the comments. It's at Chef JJ. So if you enjoy this, we appreciate your tips. All those go directly back to the team. Support them right now. So the Big Green Eggs are set up in 3 different styles today, just to also show you some different styles of cooking. So the one to my right over here, ooh yeah, set up indirect heat. There we go. Set up indirect heat, but I have the plate setter with the legs down and the Dutch oven sitting right on top of that, so it's like a hot plate. Really, really nice anytime I want to make soups or stews or refried beans. So this is preheated, 350 degrees. I want to throw a little bit of canola oil in there and get these refried beans started. Refried beans don't take a long time. We're going to start with canned beans. If you start with dried beans, just add a day to your prep. You just need those to soak in water overnight. So we're just going to start with some canned beans with the juice, pinto beans. We have a little canola oil in there, so that'll be the base. Another ingredient we're playing with, tomatoes. So obviously I've thrown those on the grill already. They have some beautiful grill marks, and we have some raw ones. So we're going to make a tomato salsa, and there's a couple of different ways you can do these, or there's lots of different ways you can do this, but a lot of knife work is not required. If you want to take all these tomatoes and dice it all up, and dice all the onions up and make a pico de gallo, then that's going to be a little bit more knife work. But for us, we're just going to make a traditional salsa. So I've got my blender over here, and some of these tomatoes are grilled, and some of them are raw. I find that tomatoes can get a little smoky, so it's definitely a personal preference on how much grill flavor you want to put into your salsa. And then half of an onion that I've grilled, and I'm just going to cut this coarsely. And then some jalapeno pepper. Now, this is where you really can control your spice level. If you want to cut it all off and remove all the seeds, that's where the majority of your spice is located. So you can just split it open down the middle. And because it's been roasted, all those insides will just scrape right out. So we're going to throw that in there into our blender as well. So tomatoes, onions, jalapenos, and then a little bit of garlic. And we're going to play with this garlic in a couple of ways. We have the raw garlic, which is nice and beautiful. And a lot of people don't necessarily think about putting into their salsas, but they should be in there. So a few cloves of garlic. And I have some roasted garlic. And that roasted garlic is actually going to go for the refried beans. So I've already roasted this. A little bit of olive oil, just wrapped it in some foil, threw it on the grill indirect, just let it bake. I'm going to throw that in that oil a little bit more. Saute it up with a little bit of raw onion. Yellow. We have a few different onions here. You can go white, you can go red, just kind of depending on the flavor you're looking for. The red's going to be a sweeter flavor, whereas the white is going to be a little bit more bitter, and then the yellow is going to be a little bit in between. Alright, so some diced onion. Hear that sizzle? That's what we want to hear, because we want to saute right now. We want a good bottom heat. All right, you guys, don't let me forget about that. I just want to give it a stir. Once it's sauteed for a few minutes, so give me 3 minutes. I'm going to throw in those beans. All right. So, how we got the grilled tomatoes? Traditional, direct grill. So, 400 degrees. Cast iron grate. And just direct heat. So we can get a nice char on the tomatoes, we can get a good char on the onions, and then a little bit of red pepper that we're going to use for our chilaquiles, maybe. So I'm just going to let that pepper rest a little bit. Since I'm done grilling vegetables, I'm going to throw a pan on for the chilaquiles. So a shallow bottom wok, steel wok. Direct heat. Then I'm just going to lower the vents a little bit. Let that heat up. We'll talk more about chilaquiles when we get all the ingredients for it, really, I guess. So we have the refried beans cooking or started. We're going to go back to these salsas and talk about them. So the great thing about the salsas are you can play around with the flavors, the spice content, different types of tomatoes, different types of onions. But traditionally it's tomatoes, onions, some sort of pepper, jalapeno, serrano, and maybe some fresh herbs, of course. So 2 different types of herbs that we're going to play with that really stand out. Fresh cilantro. So we're just going to give that rough chop. I'm going to throw it into that raw tomato / cup tomato salsa, red tomato. And then dried, see if you can see that, Mexican oregano. So it has, it's not as soapy as traditional like Italian oregano. It has a very distinct flavor. So where you're going to source all these ingredients is the grocery store. And you can probably find most of these at a traditional grocery store, but I would encourage you to check out your local Mexican supermarket. I guarantee you there's one near you, and they have all of these ingredients. And you can make really, really authentic Mexican food without a lot of money, or complicated ingredients. So ours is, well, I'm not going to tell you ours because ours has a really, really delicious little restaurant in the back, like a lot of those grocery stores do, and ours happens to make a really particularly good burrito. So I'm not going to tell you where it is because everyone will go there and we won't be able to get our burritos at Yogi's. Damn it! Said it. Oh. All right, it's Yogi's. My time's up. Oh yeah. Now I have those whole cloves of garlic in there, but I'm not worried about the whole cloves right now. Eventually we're going to mash this all up. And when we do mash that all up, the garlic will be included. So now we'll pour in the beans. So canned pinto beans with the liquid. If you're doing dried pinto beans, soak them in water overnight and then use the same amount of liquid. Quick stir. Woo! Fire. All right. So as a reminder, you guys, I had the Dutch oven, and then a little bit of canola oil, and then some of this whole roasted garlic, and some of the onion. I sauteed that up, and then added in the beans. I'm going to stir that up, and then we'll add in the spices, the magic spices that make refried beans, or that flavor, which is cumin and chili powder in this case. Cumin and chili powder, salt, and some more fresh cilantro. So that's going to be the base for that. So now that we have those beans working, we want them to simmer a little bit. We want some of that liquid to reduce. And then as soon as it's reduced by about half, we'll add the spices, and then we'll start to mash it up a little bit. All right. You know, the salsa is just building and building. But I want to talk about the other salsa as well, which is a tomatillo salsa, green salsa. Maybe a lot of people are put off by it, or it's not necessarily their first choice. But usually, green salsa doesn't mean automatically spicier salsa. It's just tomatillo salsa, not tomatoes. And woo! These just came off indirect grill, so these are roasted. This one's set up just like an oven would be set up. So heat, plate setter, and then just a stainless steel grid with the feet up, or on the plate setter have the feet up, and then the stainless grid on that. And then whatever's sitting on that grid is going to act like it's roasting on an oven. So we do have, I'm going to move that out of the way, a Dutch oven with a little bit of filling we'll talk about. But then around that I had these tomatillos that were just roasting. So I've got these cooked roasted tomatillos, and then I also have raw tomatillos. And these are not a tomato, they're not a green tomato. They're actually part of the gooseberry family, not the tomato family. And but they do taste like a spicy green tomato. So they're really delicious in salsas. Now they do come with this husk or this cover on it. So you just want to peel away that husk or cover and discard it. Or if you're going to roast them, you can roast them with the husk in, but you're not going to want to use that for the salsa. If you find that the husks are a little sticky or the surface is a little sticky, you can always take them and dip them in a little bit of warm water, and those husks will immediately pull away. So now we have two base ingredients. We have the red tomato and the tomatillos. So I'm going to finish up this red tomato salsa, and then we will work on the tomatillo salsa and then a couple ingredients after that. Hopefully my blender is louder than your blender. Ooh, that's smooth. Okay, so while that's blending, there's a secret ingredient that I learned from my staff throughout the years, and that is cider vinegar. So okay. So as a reminder, you guys, I put in those grilled tomatoes and those fresh tomatoes and that garlic and cilantro, and then a little bit of that cider vinegar, and then a little bit of salt. All right. So this is our red tomato salsa. And of course, you want to check it for seasoning and spice and flavor. Nice. So of course this salsa could be used for whatever you want salsa for. Salsa and chips, dip and chips, it's just it's salsa. It can be thrown in chicken dishes. It can be thrown like one pot dishes where you take a skillet, add chicken, throw your salsa in, and cook it all together. So really pretty versatile. I'm going to show you chilaquiles, which is technically a leftover recipe. So you're using salsa that maybe you made a couple days ago, or it's fresh, but it's done. It's got to be used up. So this is traditionally a next morning kind of hangover food, but it's also a great anytime food. So we have our salsa. That's preheating. Okay, let's check on our refried beans. So the refried beans are simmering. That liquid is reducing. So I'm using a slotted spoon. You could use like a potato masher if you wanted to. I'm going to add the spices, the chili powder and the cumin. And I'm going to add some salt as well. And as I stir this, I'm going to mash the beans a little bit. Now this really becomes a personal preference. You can mash these to the point where they're completely smooth. You can even take these beans and put them in the blender and blend them to where they're literally just smooth refried beans. So everyone's personal texture is perfectly fine. But we do want to reduce this long enough to where it does tighten up, and then mashing up those beans helps thicken that up. I'm also focusing on mashing up those cloves of garlic as well. So refried beans are going to continue to simmer. Now, on to the tomatillo salsa. We're back to the tomatillo salsa. So we're going to again do the combination of raw and cooked tomatillos without the husks. We'll throw them right into the blender. If you wanted to do a smoked salsa or grilled salsa fully, you just want to be aware of how much smoke that all of these vegetables, these tomatillos, peppers, all that, how much smoke they're going to absorb. So overall, how smoky your salsa will become. So I tend to stay away from a lot of like smoked, any sort of smoked salsas, just because they can get really out of control really fast. I'm even going to use, instead of a grilled pepper, I'm just going to use a raw pepper, but it's going to be a serrano. A little less pepper as well, because we're going to include the seeds in this one. Alright. Then I had one of them that was really sticky, so I just put it in that warm water. It peels right off. Alright. Some fresh cilantro, and then a little bit of that Mexican oregano. That's going to give that tomatillo salsa that really distinct flavor. A little bit of salt. I'm going to use red onions for this. Rough chop, and these ones are going to be raw. So cooked onions in the other salsa, raw onions in this salsa. And time to chop it up. Any guesses on the drink yet? It is not Sunkist orange soda. Good guess. But this is something that I always love to consume while consuming Mexican food. So of course when you're at the Mexican grocery store, I am getting my favorite beverage, Mexican beverage of choice. Alright. So again, you could go on how, if you wanted this to go longer and be a bit smoother, you could. Oh, it's so fresh. The oregano is so distinct. Taste it. Okay, so now we have two, which you can't see. There we go. Two different salsas, two different flavor profiles, little different spice content, and some of it's grilled, some of it's raw. And you can do lots of things with this from the fresh standpoint that we just talked about. Now, if we take it to the next step, a couple of kind of leftover or next step kind of things that you can do with the salsa. One thing is that we can turn it into an enchilada sauce. So most enchilada sauces start from cooked tomatoes, which we already kind of have here. So we would just take our salsa and put it into a stock pot or a Dutch oven and reduce that. Add some tomato paste and some more probably dried pepper. And then once that's reduced and thickened up, we would just puree the whole thing until really smooth. And you have yourself a really delicious enchilada sauce. Speaking of which, enchilada sauce, which is convenient because we're going to make enchiladas. So that's taking the salsa one step further, cooking it more. Remember to add some tomato paste. That helps tighten it up and thicken it up as that reduces because it's mostly water. And then that's going to be a good base for your enchilada sauce. You want to make sure that this is completely cool before you use it to make enchiladas, especially since the way we're going to do it, which is prepping them for throughout the week. So we're going to prep them and freeze them and then be able to make them, bake them off throughout the week. So that's for cooked enchiladas or cooked sauce. As far as raw, we're going to use the raw sauce, and technically this should maybe be a little leftover or maybe a couple days old because you need to use it up, but it's not necessary. It's just the spirit of the recipe. And we're going to use that for chilaquiles. So first thing is we need filling for our enchiladas. And a really super easy recipe for filling for enchiladas is what I consider like a piggyback recipe. Meaning, we take some chicken, which chicken legs are really delicious. They're cheap and they're always available, and they take on flavor really, really well. So at the end of the day, it's still chicken, and even though it's dark meat chicken and it's delicious, it's still doesn't have all these super different layers of flavor. So we're going to use this chicken leg, season it with a little bit of salt and pepper and whatever you want. And then we're going to take it and mix it with something else that has lots and lots of extra flavor and oil and fat, chorizo sausage. Just throw it all into the same pot, so Dutch oven. So I just threw raw chicken, raw chorizo into the Dutch oven, threw it on the egg and let it bake, and just let everything simmer. All that extra grease and from the skin and the chicken and the chorizo just kind of steams everything and gives you a nice, oh man, that's going to be hot. Put these back over here. So what happens, I got the gloves on for this, is of course everything pulls away from the bone and everything cooks and you end up with all this shredded chicken and sausage, and then you also end up with this little puddle of delicious grease. So another important thing, this is our filling. So by just taking this chicken off the bone and picking through it and removing all the, any skin or bone, this becomes a nice, delicious filling on its own, just from all that flavor that's already in that chorizo. You want to get this again while you're at the Mexican grocery store. They usually have some sort of deli, so you want that fresh, bulk Mexican chorizo because it has tons of that paprika in it and tons of spice. So that all that meat's just completely cooked off. Now, if you want more grill flavor, remove the lid from your Dutch oven and let some of that flavor from the grill, whether it be smoke or whatnot, enter that. But then again, be careful on how much smoke you get because there's a lot of water content in it. So I'm going to get this out of the way. Set it someplace where it doesn't catch anything on fire. And show you so I have a cooled, something I can actually handle version, which I've mixed all of that sausage and chicken together. And this is going to become our filling for our enchiladas. So steps in making the enchiladas. You could use flour tortillas, you could use corn tortillas. We prefer corn tortillas. So we'll take some fresh corn tortillas, and we're going to cook these twice. We're going to cook them once now so that they can hold up to the sauce and freezing and thawing, and then obviously then when we thaw them and bake them off or cook them, that's when they cook again. So we're just going to take these corn tortillas, these are yellow corn tortilla, put them on direct heat. And just get a little toast on them. We're not trying to cook them to where they're crispy or anything. We're just trying to set the outside a little bit because we need to cover the sauce or cover the tortilla in sauce, and we don't want it to completely break down. In the meantime, I've got a shallow dish and some of that cooled enchilada sauce. Do one more. I'm going to switch this out. One more dish. And for family prep, this is the time in which you would just make all of them. You would get several packages of corn tortillas, and we would make all of them and then freeze them. So I'm just going to make a few here to show you guys the assembly process. Doesn't take very long at all. Just kind of set the outside a little bit. And now, what I want to do is take that tortilla and just give it a light coating of the sauce. And the reason why I want to do that is because it's going to naturally absorb the sauce, and I don't want it to absorb the sauce that goes over the top of the enchiladas. And I don't want it to absorb all the juices out of the filling. So a few tortillas. We'll put the filling right in the middle. You don't want to get too greedy with the filling. You want to be able to fold these so that they close. And we'll try to wrap these somewhat tightly. You notice we're not putting any cheese or anything inside. Letting the filling stand on its own, but if you wanted to, you could. If you want to put vegetables, you could. You can see these tortillas have absorbed. They've absorbed the majority of that red sauce. So now, at this point, we'd actually throw them in the freezer right now. And they'll all freeze. Once they're frozen, we can kind of break them apart in there individually, and then we can package them however we want. And then when it's time to cook them, we can just pull however many we want out of the freezer. And then take our enchilada sauce and go right over the top. And then the cheese does become important. So there's a few different ways you can do it. If you just want to use mozzarella cheese or pepper jack, that's fine. But your most authentic flavor is going to be Chihuahua. So it is a mozzarella style cheese, but it does have a specific, it has a little bit more of a nutty flavor. So a very good melting cheese is called Chihuahua cheese. Put that right over the top. Then, of course, you're going to bake that on your grill indirect or in your oven, or if you're making them fresh, just like this, you could even just put that right under your broiler as well, and then you just cook in a matter of minutes. All right, so that's your enchiladas. Sorry, I have to do this. Okay, let's go back to those refried beans and see how they're doing. I'm going to move this out of the way. Because we're going to need to make some chilaquiles. Alright. Oh yeah. So it's been simmering nicely. It's much thicker. And now we're really to the point where we can determine how much longer we want to go. If we want that totally smooth texture, we would just literally put it in the blender. If we want more of a Tex-Mex kind of texture to it, you're going to have beans, you're going to have smashed beans, you're going to have the chunks of onion. You could put bacon in this and start with bacon if you wanted to render bacon first. You could add pork to it, of course. Fresh cilantro. We are going to add a bit of lime juice to this. And that'll really help make the flavors pop. And of course, salt and pepper. We already added that salt, but we'll taste it first. Lime juice. We want just a touch of fresh cilantro. Cilantro's a love-hate thing. Some people just, it tastes like soap to them. There's our refried beans. And even as those cool, those will thicken. So we'll use these refried beans for lots of things. We'll keep some just like this, just so we have available to make some quick nachos, anything like that. But once they've cooled, you can also, just like the enchiladas, do some do-ahead type of dishes. So you can use taco size, burrito size, whatever you'd like. This is definitely a favorite in our house. Simply just taking those refried beans, adding a little bit of that Chihuahua cheese, and then the fold technique. You fold just one end, and then you fold the two sides. And then you can hold it up just like that. We like these smaller shells because they're really good for just like snacks or grab and go. So you just take a couple of these, pop them in the microwave, pop them in the toaster oven, and in a few minutes you have some delicious burritos with homemade refried beans that you did yourself. Of course, if you wanted to make full-size versions, just get the larger burrito shell so you can get more in it. Excuse me for a second. Okay. All right. So it's our last dish. Chilaquiles. Delicious leftover dish. Delicious dish using leftover ingredients that is super easy to make. So what you need is a little bit of that salsa, which we have. You need some tortilla chips, which we have. And these are, if you were going to make your own tortilla chips, you just want to make sure your tortilla chips are a day old. You want them a little bit stale. If you're using like a pre-purchased tortilla chip, that's fine. They're going to be plenty dry. We need some cheese. We'll use a couple different kinds. So we've been talking about the Chihuahua a lot. That's your kind of mozzarella, really melty, Mexican-style mozzarella. And then this is cotija, which is the hard, fine ground, salty, similar to a Parmesan cheese, but again, Mexican style. So cotija and Chihuahua cheese and eggs. and maybe a little hot sauce. We're doing hair of the dog. Okay, so we have that skillet. It's been preheated. We're going to add a little bit more canola oil. And we're going to add the salsa. Right. We're immediately going to add some chips to that. So these chips are going to saute in that salsa. You'd be amazed at how much liquid they absorb. Okay. So we'll just stir these around. We're not trying to break up the chips, we're trying to leave them whole, so we'll just kind of fold them, and that salsa heats up, those chips will heat up, and they'll start to absorb the liquid. Now this is a really, really great, quick dish that you can make, for several people at a time, or just for a single person. And then once that salsa's been mostly absorbed, we're going to crack a couple eggs into that pan. I've moved everything to one side, so these are on the other side. And we're going to take that cheese, we're going to put it right on top of the chip salsa mixture. So now we have these eggs cooking, those chips, the salsa, the cheese. Close the lid, let it cook a little bit. We are direct heat here, so it doesn't take a long time. Of course, you can do this on your cooktop pretty easily. And as a reminder, guys, this is set up direct heat, cast iron grate, and at 350 degrees, 375. When you're using an additional piece, a Dutch oven or any sort of piece on top of your grate and using direct heat, you don't need nearly as much direct heat as you would think. It's like turning a burner on and off. So 350 to 375 degrees is going to give you kind of that good medium to medium high kind of heat. If you're looking for higher temperatures, you're really looking to saute something or do something like that, I would recommend using this setup over here with the plate setter, because it's a much more even heat and you're not dealing with that direct open flame. If you still want that smokiness from the grill flavor, you can always throw a little something into the flame while it's cooking. So I like this for kind of the higher heat cooking, medium, high heat. You can go this way, and then all kind of. If I'm using this is an oven really. This is really an oven. If I'm just going to drop it 100 degrees and add smoke, then it's a smoker. So these are your three really most common kind of setups. So that's chilaquiles. You can go one step further. A little hot sauce. And then if you don't want the sunny side up eggs, we can always scramble those up and mix it in with everything else. The appropriate plate for a beautiful dish of chilaquiles. Now, there's a couple of little things that are really going to wake this up for you. But I recommend that they're easy, cheap, they don't take a long time to prep. So we'll get this out. Put this on the pan. So delicious. So the things that might set this off. Just a little bit of thinly sliced radish. So you get a little spiciness and a little bit of crunch. That's a nice, consistent texture. So just microplane. Just a little bit of thinly sliced radish. And then the other thing that's really delicious and super easy to do are pickled red onions. So just take your red onions and slice them thinly, put them in a jar, add cider vinegar, apple cider vinegar, and a couple tablespoons of sugar, and a tablespoon of salt. That's for one onion. And let them sit there. And you could eat these a couple hours after you do this, or you can let them sit there for several weeks. And they're a quick pickled onion. But they really add a nice dimension to simple dishes like chilaquiles, tacos, topping on your enchiladas, anything like that. And they add a nice little crunch as well. So that's your chilaquiles. Almost forgot one. So that is the final dish, you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. I really appreciate it. Again, if you enjoyed any of this, any of it's got some value to you, please, we're accepting Venmo through Chef JJ's. It's the Venmo account. And all those proceeds go to support the team right now. So again, if you had any questions, contact us directly, shoot a comment, be sure and share with your friends. And we look forward to seeing you guys the next time. Have a great weekend, everybody.